So let's analyse Bart Verbruggen's matchday warm-up for Brighton and Hove Albion FC. Now this warm-up is before the game against Manchester United in the Premier League in January 2025. As one of the youngest starting goalkeepers in the league at only 22 years of age, there's no doubting Verbruggen's talent, but his warm-up is probably one of the most unusual ones that I've seen so far, and that's for a number of different reasons. But to begin with, after the initial handling and passing, which was quite a short start to the warm-up, Verbruggen and his colleagues went straight into a crossing drill. Now, traditionally, this is an element of the warm-up that would be completed towards the end, but Bart and his Brighton colleagues alternated in taking crosses and distributing very early on in the warm-up. Verbruggen then transitioned into some angled shots, and this became the vast majority of his warm-up. I'd be interested to know if this is something that he does every week, or if they adapt their warm-up based on the opposition that they're facing. Even though they're a possession-based team, it'd be refreshing for the goalkeeping nostalgists that Brighton still focus heavily on shot stopping as a main element of their warm-up. Verbruggen faced 6 touch and strikes from the goalkeeper coach on the angle before introducing his number 2, Jason Steele, providing a different sort of angled situation. In this situation, the goalkeeper coach would either play Jason Steele in to have a shot or take a touch himself to strike on the angle. This would present Bart with an opportunity to either engage with a 1v1 or set ready for a strike. This variation is obviously a lot more match realistic and provides a little bit more of a decision-making element rather than just facing straight shots on the angle. As I say, I'm not sure if it's something that they do every week, but it obviously was incorporated in order to make sure that there was heavy focus on dealing with 1v1s and dealing with strikes from angles within the box. Another interesting element is the fact that Brighton still gave a lot of thought towards Jason Steele and his warm-up, even though he was performing the role as the number 2 goalkeeper in the game. When we've analysed previous Premier League warm-ups, either David Raya or Andre Onana, you can see that the number 1 gets a lot of prioritisation during the warm-up. However, with Brighton, Jason Steele got the same number of reps from the same goalkeeper coach with the same drill as Bart Verbruggen did. And it's not something that Bart Verbruggen seemed to mind, as he was quite happy to walk around, take in the stadium and wait for his next set. So after Steele completed his set of the angled strikes, Bart Verbruggen did the exact same drill from the opposite side. 6 touch and strikes from the goalkeeper coach before introducing the other goalkeepers for that decision-making element. And as I said before, this seemed to be a major focus of Brighton's warm-up. In terms of Bart Verbruggen's demeanour during his warm-up, he was very calm and very relaxed. You can see that he's a powerful goalkeeper, he defends his goal well, he has good athleticism, and compared to the other goalkeepers that we've analysed during their warm-up, he probably fits right in the middle. Not quite as languid or as relaxed as Onana, and not quite as aggressive or dynamic as David Raya, but a nice blend between the two. Despite his young age, he didn't seem overwhelmed about being at Old Trafford or facing Manchester United, and if any shots went into the goal during the warm-up, he brushed it off, didn't matter, he was on to the next rep. And as I said before, when he wasn't working, he was very calm, walking around and taking it all in. Some goalkeepers like to add a lot of energy into their warm-up, bring their heart rate up, feel aggressive, feel dominant, and Bart Verbruggen didn't seem to be that type of goalkeeper. He seemed to be quite calm, quite focused on the technique during each action, whilst being aware that he didn't need a full high level of intensity in order to get ready to perform. You can also see from his actions in the warm-up that he has good control of his body. He's got good flexibility and he's quite comfortable using his feet or his hands during 1v1 saves. After completing the angled strikes part of the warm-up, Verbruggen then moved on to a 3-tiered strike drill. In this drill, Verbruggen faced 3 potential strikes, 2 on the angle and 1 centrally. The second goalkeeper coach also provided a block to his view whilst following in the strike for any rebounds. The main goalkeeper coach would indicate which strike was going to happen by pointing and shouting, at which point the second goalkeeper coach would get out of Verbruggen's view and follow in the strike. The strikes were varied. Some came off the floor, some came as a volley out of hands, providing a mixture of different service and getting Bart ready for different types of strikes that he might face during the game. This is an easy improvement that goalkeepers of all ages and abilities can add to their warm-up, Facing different type of strikes help you to get mentally and physically prepared for what you might face during the match. It was also good to see that even when you get to the Premier League, if the goalkeeper coach beats you with a screamer, it's still always frustrating. This was the only part of the warm-up so far where the number 2, Jason Steele, didn't complete the same drill or the same number of reps as the starting goalkeeper Verbruggen. Verbruggen faced around 12 shots in this format, and although not all of them were on target, it's still quite a high number of shots to face, in addition to the shots that he faced on the angle. And once that drill was complete, we moved back onto the angle to introduce some 1v1 blocks. As I mentioned before, you can see Verbruggen's flexibility, you can see that he's confident in his spread shape, and this turned out to be the final part of his warm-up. As I said before, it's one of the more unusual warm-ups I've seen, and that's purely because of how soon it finished. This was for a 2 o'clock kickoff, and by 1:35, Bart Verbruggen was done and heading into the dressing room. Matchday warm-ups are always unique, and they're dictated by the individual goalkeeper and what he or she perceives to need before a game. However, this is probably one of the quickest matchday warm-ups that I've seen. Given Brighton's reputation as a possession-based team, I presume that there would be a lot more on distribution, a lot more on different distribution techniques and ranges, but despite a small portion of that at the beginning of the warm-up, the main focus was definitely on angle strikes and strikes down the middle. It was interesting to see other parts of his game during the match. His start position was always high, he was always maintaining an equal distance with his backline based on where they were on the pitch. We were also able to see a little bit more of his distribution style, particularly from goal kicks. Whenever Brighton were awarded a goal kick, Verbruggen was in control. It was almost like a quarterback, setting plays, making sure that the team were in the right positions before he received the pass, before then making the decision to play out from the back. And whilst he didn't have too much to do in terms of shots on target, his performance wasn't flawless. He did misplace a couple of passes, including one which led to a Manchester United penalty. During the penalty situation, you could see a little bit more about his character and his demeanour. He wasn't super aggressive, he wasn't super dominant, instead trying to rely on his size to put off Bruno Fernandes, and ultimately he wasn't able to guess the right direction and wasn't able to save the penalty. Overall, his performance aided Brighton to a 3-1 win at Old Trafford, a very interesting game and warm-up to analyse. Whose warm-up would you like us to analyse next? Let us know down in the comments.